When I ask you how you measure your height and weight, some of you may get confused because everybody knows how. We use a tape measure or stand on a scale to tell us our height and weight. Measuring in the physical world is relatively easy. Height is a property you can observe, and so is weight. And even temperature and speed, all of these are physical attributes. We can use different kinds of tools and machinery and take advantage of their characteristics to attain a number that describes how tall, how heavy, how hot, or how fast something is. But we as psychologists, are interested in things that occur within us and need the skill to measure things in our mind. But measuring things within us can be a little tricky. If we want to measure how happy your childhood was, or what your biggest dream is like, it is not useful to use a ruler and measure. It would make the most sense to design questions and ask you to measure things that are happening inside of you. But problems arise. When we ask the participants what is their first childhood memory, they'd probably give us a very subjective account of what happened. Sometimes the information is inaccurate at best, misleading at worst. No matter how you ask questions, the answers the participants give are always subjective. And how do you know if you've successfully measured things in the mind objectively? This is the ultimate dilemma that psychologists face. We need to measure concepts as subjective as emotions, and at the same time making sure the method that we're using is as objective as possible. Well, think about that for a second. We want psychology to be a science, so our claims should be as accurate as without bias as possible. But when we ask people questions, all we get is biased and filtered information. They just say things they want us to know while hiding others. If we keep going like this, how can psychology ever be scientific? Well, this problem has inspired psychologists to come up with ways to ask better questions and analyze the answers the participants gave us. The methods of testing have improved significantly since. If we randomly observe behavior or explain behavior based on one single observation, the explanation will be very subjective. However, if we can systematically observe behaviors that point to specific psychological characteristics, then we can say that we are objectively measuring the subjective human mind. This field of knowledge of systematic observations is called psychological testing. A psychological test is a measurement of the mind that is objective. We come up with standardized procedures to find out your personality, intelligence, or attitudes. We use different tools and questions to help us better understand the human mind. Some of those tools might surprise you, and sometimes you don't even realize that it is a test before we tell you. Well, right now, take out a piece of paper, and on it, draw a house, a tree, and a person. Very simple. You might even think that it's not a test. It's just doodling. You can just draw what you wanted to draw, and what if I tell you that this is a test that lets you draw what you want to draw on purpose? When we draw anything onto paper, we project our personality onto the painting without realizing it. Sometimes you don't even know what your feelings say about you, but the psychologists have a secret tool to help them: a booklet of interpretations. Using this, we could observe the tiny details on your drawings and figure out what they say about your personality. Tests such as these are called projective tests. Projective tests gives you a way to show information in your mind in a subtle way. Besides drawings, projective tests can take different forms. One of them is making you complete a sentence. Sentences such as, "I'm happy when," something. Or the test can make you interpret the meaning of an ink blot. All of these tests use vague items and make you fill in the blanks with things in your head. And that's how we can decipher what you draw and get information in your head. Projective tests can tell us information about personality, life experiences, and perhaps even mental illnesses. All of these interpretations went through careful examinations of research and are considered to be fairly objective. This means all the interpretations are consistent and valid. It is useful and effective. Look at this red and white pattern. Can you create this pattern using these bricks? It's pretty easy. This looks like a set of toys we can buy for kids. If we see it in someone's house, we might consider it a normal set of toys, and it's creative, fun, and interactive. We can also play like it's a common logic game. But I can tell you that it is a psychological test It is used to assess children's intelligence. When we need to complete one of these brick tasks, we need to use our visual and spatial reasoning so that we can separate the pattern into blocks that we have to use. We have to also remember what the blocks look like to complete the task quickly and accurately. A test administrator will time us and assess our ability to complete these visual tasks. This test is from a package of intelligence tests. We have many different kinds of intelligence. The intelligence of verbal comprehension marks the understanding and usage of language. Fluid intelligence is the ability to think and plan, and several others. Intelligence tests are made up of several components to accommodate the measurement of different kinds of intelligence. Intelligence tests can also take the form of simply answering questions. Intelligence tests in adults usually involve a test book and test questions they need to answer. For intelligence tests for children, though, we get creative in making the tasks because children usually don't respond well to pen and paper tests. Hence, we get bricks, pictures of animals, patterns, and images to measure kids' intelligence. Think back to your experience in high school. There's a big test that we all have to prepare before getting into college. That's right, 学测, or General Scholastic Ability Test, GSAT, is what every high school student has to take to get to college. This is another form of psychological test. The GSAT is split into subjects. When we are tested on those subjects, the test administrator is measuring the academic abilities in all of those subjects. We have been taught the knowledge in high school and are trained to solve problems in the related fields. The test is to find out how competent we are in science, language, and social science subjects. These tests whose goal is to test our competence in something are called aptitude tests. The tests the teacher made, or the final exams the school made, or tests such as the GSAT are all considered aptitude tests. Aptitude tests are the way we measure the capability of a person who received training and learning in the subject and find out how well they understand the material. It is mostly used in the field of education, but the theory behind it stems from the psychological testing theories. One of the other effects of administering one of these tests is that the school can use it to improve the quality of teaching, learning, and benefit the communication between teacher-student-parent relationships. And the inspection of the education system as a whole could benefit from those tests too. The House Tree Person test looks like a kid's ordinary doodling. The brick test resembles a logic puzzle that we can buy online. And the GSAT test looks like questions are designed by a single teacher typing on a keyboard. However, these tests are very effective. Effective in the sense that it has a rich theoretical basis, is scrutinized by psychologists, and requires professionals to make, administer, and interpret the test results. The House Tree Person test requires a booklet of interpretations, and in it, the content is based on former research and psychology findings. It uses statistical data or qualitative inquiry to show that their interpretations are not only common, but also accurate to a certain level. We constructed test theories to make sure that what we measure is consistent, valid, and meaningful in finding out the truth in our minds. In the booklet, we can see statements such as, houses drawn in the middle represent, or person drawn with fingers is a sign that, or tree with only branches and no leaves might say something about. All of these are based on research and it requires professional to interpret the results. The brick test measures intelligence. Intelligence tests can date way back to the 1900s and has been carefully re-examined and revised ever since. Over the generations of psychologists, many dedicated their lives to making sure that the tests are accurate and useful for the world. They improve the questions, update the data, and come up with different tests for different people based on different theories. There are intelligence tests for infants, toddlers, kids, adolescents, adults, and even those with disabilities. There are tests for language intelligence, as well as reasoning and working memory capacity. Finally, the GSAT test is so similar to our final exams that we often think they produced it the same way. However, the production of the GSAT test is more complicated than the school final exam. To make GSAT, we need to gather panels of professionals from related fields such as math and Chinese to produce test questions. Then we will have randomly picked high school teachers to select potential questions to be on the test. and through a pre-test phase where they have college freshmen take the test to make sense of its difficulty and make sure it's not biased. Then can we say the test production is complete. The test results will also be scored by professionals by calculating how the student do this year and give each of them a result of measurement, which is your score. All of these can show us that tests are not simply made up of one person. It is empirical, valid, and verified as objective and accurate. It is objectively measuring things we can't see, and the century-old question of objective measurement was solved, just like that. These tests, however, have some drawbacks. Psychological tests in general can only measure one dimension of a person at a certain point in time. That means a test only picks out a certain part of a person at one specific moment. And we know that people is multidimensional and that they will change through the course of their lives. And you have no idea how they will behave on other dimensions or at other different point in life. Right now, the testing procedure is like taking a snapshot of a person's face. You have no idea what their body looks like, and you have no idea what they will be like 1 year later. If a person finishes the test, leaves the room, we will have no idea of the complete person that he is, and have no clue of how that person changes over time. A living, breathing human being has become a 2D illusion on paper, and the test that claims to make accurate measurements falls flat. If we want to assess people in a more sophisticated way is to have multiple tests at once. For example, other than the GSAT test, we also have interviews and paper documentation of the students to evaluate their multiple dimensions. Only then universities can know what is the best for them. This type of multi-material evaluation costs significant time and energy, and it's low in efficiency. Another disadvantage tests have now is that the result can be inaccurate very easily. Let's say on the house tree person drawing test. The participants can disobey the instructions and purposely mislead the test. Since it's very easy to lie for 15 minutes, the test, as a result, would produce information irrelevant of the participants at hand. We can make the participants report every few hours to potentially solve this problem. It uses traditional tests, but is administered multiple times. Answering a few questions every 6 hours or so can improve the quality of the test with regard to the limitation of time. And it can help us understand the participants in a dynamic way. However, it costs the time and effort of the participants to always pay attention to the time of the report and answer the same questions throughout the day. It can potentially disrupt the life and the well-being of the participants. For the data collector, it is equally as annoying if we do it like this. When a participant forgets to answer the question, the collector has to consider if they should ignore the data because it's incomplete or call them to make them fill it in even if the time is off. And it will possibly result in all participants having information missing here or there, and the data was deemed unusable. Everything can go wrong in testing. Everything. Therefore, our vision for the future of testing is to make tests work across time. We not only have information about you right at this moment, we can also measure your mind from then on to keep track of the development of your personality, academic performance, or intelligence in a fairly long period of time. One way we can do that is instead of testing at specific points in time, we can use the power of social media. We can track the activity of the participants on various social media accounts and get a hint of their personality and their lives. This is more useful than tests because it requires no reporting and relatively little effort on the psychologist's end. All we have to do is to make sure that the technology is developed, we can apply it to measure anything at any time. Measuring in real time can also reduce the probability of the participants' deception or being misled, since it's more difficult to hide or fabricate the information for a long time online. This is what testing psychologists do. They come up with better ways to measure things in the mind, and we are inspired to make the mind speak for its own, make the mind visible, put it into tables, plot it onto graphs, and further improve the way we evaluate, diagnose, and classify people. Every time we conceive of a new way to test and measure symbolizes a breakthrough in the field. And the more accurate, meaningful, and useful our way of testing is, the more we can use these tests to get reliable and valid information about the human mind. We stand in a time where we know the method of testing, but there simply aren't enough tests for us to measure everything and to suit every situation. So we need creativity in the fields. So to involve psychological testing into something more, we need the passion of young people to make psychology both dynamic and progressive. We need the curiosity that you all have to dig deeper and find out the truth about who we are. Psychological testing is the key to the mind. Knowing how testing is used can make us better at gaining insight. And for psychologists, it's all that we need. We need passionate, creative, and curiosity-driven people to lead psychology to greatness. We need new blood to get us through the ups and downs and achieve the truths of the human mind, the mind of all of us. It's an invitation from us to everyone out there who wants to understand who we are and who wants to pursue knowledge of the mind, the brain, and the self. Psychology is all about understanding why we do what we do. And everyone is capable of understanding who they are, and most of them would benefit from it. So give it a try. That's all we have for now. Glad you're here today. See you next time. Yay!